Hi there, Tutor Bednego here. Welcome to AK Online Academy. Alright, so in today's session we're going to be concluding the topic we have been looking at, which is quadratic equations. Alright, so in the exam in paper 1, you are expected to solve two equations. You are going to have quadratic equations and initial equations. So we are used to seeing quadratic equations in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. We're used to seeing them in this form, okay? But these are also quadratic equations, and they're actually going to be two types of equation. You're going to have a quadratic equation and an indicial equation. What is an indicial equation? This is an equation that involves indices. You have something like this format is very common. Let's say you have maybe an 8 here or something. They will be phrased this way. So the equation. Last year, I actually had a student who had challenges differentiating the two, an initial equation and the quadratic equation. So the easiest way you can differentiate between these two, because they'll be phrased the same way. You can see, says solve the equation, okay? And they're a bit similar. There's an x somewhere, there's also an x somewhere. Okay, this is also an example of an initial equation. Let's say like that. Okay, this one is actually very similar to those now. Yeah, so how do you determine the difference? This type of equation will require only one answer. They will say something like x is equal to dash. Whereas this will say x is equal to dash or dash. So this tells you to say I'm dealing with a quadratic equation. So if you're not sure, just check on the answer space provided. How many answers do they want me to provide for this question? If they want 2, just know that you're dealing with a quadratic equation. If they want 1, it's an initial equation. So that is that. So again, we're used to seeing quadratic equations in this format. So some people may not recognize that this is actually quadratic equation. So this will also guide you. Okay? Look at the question. Solve the equation. For example, this one. Okay? Simply check how many answers do they want. If they want 2, just know that no matter how strange the question looks, this is a quadratic equation. So let us see how we solve these quadratic equations up here. So the first one, like I mentioned, all these are exam questions. So the first one is x squared minus 2x is equal to 0. So what we do here, we're going to factorize this part. So what is common there? X is common. Excuse me. X squared divided by x will give us x. Negative divided by positive is a negative. 2x divided by x, the x's will cancel, remain with the 2 there. You close, and then you equate it to 0. At this point, you equate the value outside there, bracket to 0, and the bracket to 0. So meaning it's going to be x is equal to 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0, and then you solve for x. So here we're done. Okay, you can proceed this side by saying x is equal to 0 plus 2. When this negative crosses, it becomes positive, or x is equal to positive 2, and you are done. Okay, we come to this one. For this one, what we're going to do, I want to leave the original up here, so I'm going to rewrite the question. Okay, what we're going to do is simply divide both sides by what? By 2, so that the 2's here can cancel. Remember, you're solving for x. So 8 divided by 2 there will give us a 4. This is x squared actually. Okay, so now we need to get rid of the 2, because we're trying to find the values of x. So we are going to square root both sides in order to cancel the 2 this side, so that you can just remain with an x. Now, whenever you square root a value, you're actually supposed to find two answers. Why 2 answers? Because the square root of 4, okay, the square root of 4 is 2, right? Which simply means 2 times 2 gives you a what? Gives you a 4. But negative 2 times negative 2 also gives you a what? Positive 4. Alright? So that is why every time you square root a number, you should find 2 answers. That is why when you check the quadratic formula, the one in paper 2, there is that part where it says negative b plus or minus. Why? Because there is a square root there. Well, the value you are going to square root, you have to find 2 answers. Okay, so whenever going forward, whenever you square root a number, you need to provide two answers, a negative and a positive. That is actually why when you're dealing with questions on what topic is that one? Variation. The first question usually they'll ask you to find the value of k, the constant variation, and then the second one, the next two questions, they'll ask you to say find the value, just value. Okay, find the value given that if x is equal to this, y is equal to this, find the value of something. And then the last question, they will say find the values. Okay, here they will say value, value, value. This simply means you're going to square root a value during you as you are solving that question. And then once you square root that value, you're supposed to find two answers. So that's a tip for this topic. So whenever you square root a number, you need to come up with two answers, a positive and negative. I'm sure that is clear by now. So meaning here, the values of x are going to be positive 2 or negative 2. Because when you 2 times 2 gives us a 4. Negative 2 times negative 2 also give us a 4. And you are done. We now go to the next one. Okay, so the next one is C 2 in brackets 2x plus or minus 1 squared is equal to 25. So at this point, all we have to do here is we square root both sides to get rid of the 2. So meaning we're going to have 2x minus 1 squared is equal to 25. So we're going to square root here and square root there. So that this and this can cancel, we just remain with 2x minus 1. Now remember, we said whenever you square root a value, you have to find two values. So meaning we're going to have plus or minus 5. Okay, square root of 25 is 5. And then at this point, since we're looking for two answers, okay, we're going to say 2x minus 1 is equal to positive 5, or 2x minus 1 is equal to negative 5. Alright, we have distributed these two values evenly. The positive is here, the negative is there. And then we solve for x. So we're going to say 2x is equal to 5 plus 1. This negative 1 has followed the 5. The sign has changed, it has become positive. So meaning we're going to say 2x is equal to 6. And then here we divide both sides by 2 to find the value of x. So meaning x here will be equal to 3. Oh, 5 plus 1 is a 6 here. That's why we get the 6. Then we divide both sides by 2. 6 divided by 2 gives us a 3. Come to this one. We're now going to say 2x is equal to negative 5. This is a negative 1. When it crosses, it becomes a positive 1. And then we're going to say 2x is equal to, there we're going to have negative 4. Divide both sides by 2. By 2, there they cancel. Meaning the value of x will be x is equal to negative divided by positive is a negative. 4 divided by 2 is a 2. So that's the other value of x. The other one, x is equal to 3. X is equal to negative 2. And you are done. We now come to the last one. So the last one is x squared is b. X squared is equal to 4 open bracket x minus 3 squared. Okay. Now you notice that this one looks a bit similar to which one? This one. This one. Okay. Except this one you don't have to square root both sides. You need to expand actually. Okay. So this 2 here simply tells us that this bracket is appearing twice. So we're going to expand it this way. X squared is equal to 4 x minus 3 x minus 3. And then we expand this bracket. And then at the end, whatever we find, we multiply with the 4 outside here. So x squared is equal to 4 in brackets x times x, x squared. X times negative 3, negative 3x. Okay? We are done. We come to negative 3. Negative times positive, negative. 3 times x, 3x. Negative times negative, positive. 3 times 3, 9. Close the bracket. Then we're going to say x squared is equal to, we now expand with the, okay, we can simplify the middle values. We can say 4, open bracket, x squared, these are like terms which are going to give us negative 6x plus 9, close bracket. And then we can expand with the 4. So x squared is equal to 4 times x squared will give us 4x squared. Positive times negative, negative. 4 times 6, that should give us 24x. And then positive times positive, positive. 4 times 9, that will be 36. We have now expanded that bracket. We now need to group the like terms. Okay, so this x squared and this guy are like terms, so we're going to say 4x squared. This is positive. When it crosses the equal sign, it becomes negative. Okay, x squared. Actually, let's do this. Let's leave a 0 here where the x is going to. So the 0 here is equal to, because you know this guy is crossing, right? So 4x squared, when this x squared crosses, it becomes negative. Okay, then we bring down negative 24x plus 36. So 0 is equal to this. When you simplify, will give us 3x squared minus 24x plus 36. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to bring the 0 inside. So at this point, the signs of these are not going to change, because 3x squared minus 24x plus 36 is equal to 0 is the same as what we have there. The same as when you say 2 is equal to x. It's the same as x is equal to 2. There's nothing like, no, this is actually a shortcut. Why? Because if we are going to follow strictly to say these values switch, we're going to say when these two crosses, it's going to be, let's say we remember the 0. Okay, when these two crosses, we're going to have x minus 2, right? And then this x, when it crosses, it's going to become negative x is equal to negative 2. Then when you divide both sides by the negative, or a negative 1 if you like, this will cancel, meaning x will give you positive 2. Therefore, this is the same as that there. So this brings us back to this one. So this expression here is the same as what we have there. I hope no one is confused. Okay, so at this point we can now say, so we can see that this is now a quadratic equation, but it has a lot of big values. So whenever you're dealing with a quadratic equation that has big values such as this, usually what will happen is that there is going to be a common factor you can use to reduce all the terms. Okay, so if you notice, 3 can go into 3, it can go into 24 and 36. So we're going to divide throughout by what? By 3. So we're going to say over 3, over 3, over 3, over 3. So that here the 3 is cancelled, we remain with x squared. Okay, negative divided by positive is negative. 24 divided by 3, that should give us, is it 8? Yeah, should be 8x. Okay, and then there 36 divided by 3, 3 divided by 3 is 1, and then that would be a 12. It is equal to 0. 0 divided by 3 is 0. So at this point, at least, it has smaller values. Okay, now we can go ahead and solve this quadratic equation. So we're going to have our data table here. So we need the value of a, b, c, the sum, the product, and the factor. So what is our a? Our a is 1. Our b is negative 8. Our product is 1 times 12, which is a times c. Our c is 12. Our sum is the same as that one, and our product is a times c, 1 times 12, giving us a 12 there. Okay, what are the factors of 12? Factors of 12, we have a 1 and 12 itself. So by now we know how to come up with these numbers. And then here we're going to, what's the next smallest factor? It's a 2. 12 divided by 2 gives us a 6. The next smallest factor is a 3. Okay, 12 divided by 3 gives us a 4. We're done listing the factors. Now we need to make sure that the biggest sign, the biggest value in each of these brackets has the same sign as the sum. The sum is negative, meaning the 12 has to be a negative, the 6 a negative, the 4 a negative. Okay, at this point, we can start trying. When we multiply each bracket, are we getting a positive 12? 1 times negative 12 gives us negative 12. Okay, 2 times negative 6 gives us negative 12. 3 times negative 4 gives us negative 12. So none of these brackets are giving us positive 12, meaning we have to do something to the sign. So meaning this guy also has to be a negative, that one a negative, that one a negative. So when you say negative 1 times negative 12, it gives us a positive 12. So everything else will now give us positive 12. At this point, we are now going to check which of these two brackets, which of these brackets can we add to get negative 8. So let's start with the first one. Negative 1 plus negative 12. Negative 1 minus 12 is equal to negative 13. Positive times negative is negative. Okay, when the signs are the same, keep the same sign, you add, you get that one. So this bracket has not given us negative 8. We go to the next one. Negative 2 plus, we're adding them, right? So means it's going to be negative 2 minus 6, which is equal to negative 8. Positive times negative is negative. When the signs are the same, keep the same sign, you add. We have gotten the negative 8 we're looking for. So meaning these are the numbers we're looking for. There's no need for us to test this one because we're going to get something like negative 7 there. Right. Now, having found this one, because some of you I'm sure already are saying this question is too long. Okay. So we're going to finish it off by applying that shortcut that I recently shared with you. So there's no need for us to start factorizing by grouping and all that. All we're going to do is we get this, there are two x's here, right? So here is another tip. If your quadratic equation is something like this, let's say negative x squared minus minus x plus 2. Okay, this is made up, right? I just want to give you an example. I don't have time to come up with a quadratic equation, an actual one. So let's say your factors are negative 1 and negative 2. Let's say these are your factors. When you're applying that shortcut, you have to pick the x with the sign that it has. So there, we're going to say negative x, and then you bring in those factors. Negative x, negative 2 is equal to 0. Some of you are making this mistake in the previous assignment I gave you, where you just say x. But here, if you notice, the x is a negative, so you have to pick it together with its sign. So I just thought I should give you this heads up. Yeah, and if there is a coefficient greater than 2, greater than 1, you also include it there as you are distributing the x to the factors, the two factors you found. So the factors I found are negative 2 and negative 6. So meaning we're just going to pick this x, we come up with two brackets like that, and then equate them to 0, so that we now shorten the solution. Okay, so we have two numbers we're looking for. So there are two x's here. You put one here, put one there, and then you simply get the factors negative 2 and negative 6. And then you equate each bracket to 0. So meaning x minus 2 is equal to 0. This bracket equated to 0, or this bracket also equated to 0. X minus 6 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 0 plus 2. When this negative 2 follows the 0, the sign changes to positive, meaning x is equal to positive 2, or x is equal to 0 plus 6, or x is equal to positive 6. When this negative 6 crosses, it becomes the positive. 0 plus 6 is the 6. And you are done. So this marks the end of our lesson. And this is where we're going to end on quadratic equations. So in the next session, we're going to start looking at indices. Meanwhile, all the best as you prepare for the test, which will be on Tuesday. Tuesday, 30 hours or 20 hours. Okay, you can refer back to the assignment, the announcement I posted in the group. We're going to have a test based on what we have covered. So the test is going to include integers, order of operations, which is simply BODMAS, algebra. So under algebra, we're going to have everything: simplify, factorize, complexity, difference of two squares, quadratic expressions, quadratic fractions, quadratic equations, and we're also going to have quadratic function graphs. And yeah, that's pretty much what the test is going to cover. Yeah, so the text is strictly going to be composed of exam questions only. Okay, no made up questions unless for integers and order of operations, because you won't find those questions in the exam. But they're important to make sure that you get the signs right. Okay, so